Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My dear brothers and sisters, welcome back to the second part of this program. Today we're talking about fostering and adoption. Before we went for the break, Shadim was talking about the initiative that they've got launching on Friday, the 18th, trying to recruit 100 mosques to recruit 100 Muslim foster parents. And just as we were going to the break, I said that when Shadim came last time on this program, he told us there was between 3,000 to 4,000 Muslim children in the care system who are looking for foster parents, people to adopt them, etc., etc. And he has in the past explained to us the role that the Muslim Foster Network in how they support people who are interested in becoming foster parents, and once they become foster parents, and continue to provide them with support. And we've had several people ring in, particularly at the last program. We had many people who rang in and shared their experiences of going through the foster parent sort of process and then becoming foster parents, and the value that provided to them personally and to the children who were placed with them. So if anybody wants to ring, please feel free to do so and share your experiences with us. The phone number is 01274 214 299. As I say, this program is about you out there, how you see yourselves as part of the wider Muslim Ummah, and some of the issues that you are interested in, and some of the issues that we are challenged by. So Shadim, coming back, I mean, obviously you said at the beginning, this is the National Adoption Week, where obviously there's an emphasis to promote adoption. Now obviously there's a difference between fostering and adopting. Fostering is where somebody take a child in, and maybe after maybe a month, 2 months, a year, the child then leaves you and goes somewhere else. And adoption is where you actually adopt the child as if he or she were your own child.
That's right.
And is that process very similar, or obviously very different?
I would say that the initial assessment processes are quite similar. Mm-hmm. Adoption is certainly lasts a longer time in terms of the assessment process. However, the key difference between adoption and fostering is when it comes to the placement of the child.
Right.
So currently, white British children are waiting on average around 900 days
right.
to be placed with an adopter.
Right.
And children from the BME community, including Muslim children, are waiting up to 1,300 days. So
1,300
almost,
days. We've got a call coming in.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, and tell us where you're from and what your name, please.
Wa alaikum assalam. My name is Tanveer.
Tanveer sir.
I live in West Yorkshire.
Oh, mashallah.
Wa alaikum assalam, Tanveer. Nice to have you on the show, brother.
How are you? You okay?
Alhamdulillah.
Tanveer sir, obviously, are you one of the foster parents?
No, my story is slightly different. We adopted two boys.
Subhanallah.
We adopted a boy about 7 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and then we adopted another boy about 2 years ago.
Subhanallah.
So we're adopters basically.
Oh, excellent. And how did you find going through the process of becoming an adoptee's parents?
Well, when we did it about 6 to 7 years ago, we found the process to be very slow,
Right.
and it was quite painstakingly slow, to be honest with you. And it very much was dependent upon who the social worker was that was appointed to you and what pace they worked at.
Right.
However, more recently, there's been change in kind of legislation or the processes, and it's much more faster now.
Oh, is it?
So the second child we adopted we found the process to be a lot more streamlined,
Right.
a lot more faster, to be fair.
Right. I mean, I know some friends who also have adopted children, and they're not necessarily from the Muslim community of Muslim background. Are your children that you've adopted from the Muslim background?
Yeah, so they generally prefer to place children with a kind of similar
Mm-hmm.
heritage. So obviously the children we adopted came from a Indian subcontinent background,
Right.
also of Muslim heritage.
Right.
So henceforth they recommended that such children be placed with families that match their heritage.
Acha, subhanallah. And obviously the age range of the children you've adopted?
Yeah, so the first boy, obviously we were open to any gender, but It happened to be that it was a boy.
Right.
He was at the time 18 months old, and we adopted him at the age of 18 months. And then our most recent adoption was about a year and a half. Approximately just over a year and a half ago. We again adopted. We left the kind of the option open, and it was a boy. And he was 4 months old when we adopted him. Adopted him.
Well, obviously, very young children in both cases, and obviously
Indeed,
you and your good lady, may Allah bless her as well, and you,
Ameen.
For taking on this channel. You are actually following in the real footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ, because he himself was an orphan at some stage, wasn't he, for a while?
Correct.
He was raised by a daima as well, and
correct,
and he said more so than anything else that to look after an orphan is more rewarding than everything else that most other things that you can do. So you are actually practicing what the Prophet ﷺ preached.
That's true, and I just want to add something to that, to be honest with you. I think that it's really important to kind of understand that when you adopt, it's slightly different to fostering, because adoption is long term. It's lifelong.
It's a permanent thing, yes.
Yes, permanent thing. So the thing to understand is that in our case, for example, when we adopted, of course, may Allah accept it and may the reward for it be something that we achieve. But I think the beauty of this is that, when you do other acts of worship, for example, you go on Umrah or you go on Hajj, there's a lot of striving and struggling in that. Yeah? Whereas in this case, it's very natural. When you adopt, you don't see it as something that is a struggle for you, right? When that child comes into your house, it's no different to raising your own children. And this is the stigma, and that's sometimes in our community, or people have apprehensions that it's going to be a chore, it's going to be hard, because they're not going to be able to see that child as their own. That's complete misconception. That's not been my experience. It's not been the experience of my auntie, and it's not been the experience of any adopter that I have physically met in my life. Right? It's only been a concern before they adopted. As soon as they adopted, it was no different to them. The experience was no different. They couldn't imagine it being any different to having a birth child. Now, just to kind of put things into perspective, I adopted at the time because we were unable to conceive. And alhamdulillah, it'd been about 8-9 years. We didn't conceive, so we adopted. And then we adopted again, like I explained to you 2 years ago, and we still didn't have children of our own. Now, alhamdulillah, Allah blessed us with a child of our own as well a year ago.
Subhanallah.
Okay? And again, that's a miracle in itself, and Allah works in mysterious ways.
Definitely.
But what I can say, hand on heart today, is that I wouldn't have done it any differently. Those children are no different.
You love them equally as much as.
Love them the same, and it's not even something that we have to force ourselves to do. It's just natural. Just like you live your own blood children equally, in a similar way we love these children in a similar fashion. So it's no different. We different in terms of the experience, and that's the kind of message that I wanted to get out there today.
I think that is a fantastic message.
I was going to say, I'm really pleased that Brother Tanveer called, because mashallah, he's very passionate and also articulate in explaining his reasons, and I find it very beneficial to be able to share with Tanveer what I'm doing in terms of raising awareness and from a marketing and an exposure perspective. And it also helps to have people who are from that background and experience and knowledge, because there's nobody better to hear it from.
Definitely, yes.
And my plea to those who are listening today and the community is, inshallah, to step forward, because in my 3 years of having met hundreds of foster carers and adopters, I'm yet to come across one person who's regretted it.
Right.
It's difficult, it's challenging, it's hard work. Nevertheless, the rewards are great. So inshallah, we've got a huge waiting list of children, particularly those from Yemeni Muslim communities, who, as I said earlier, some are waiting up to 3 to 4 years to have a match placement.
Sure.
So it's a responsibility on us as a community, as an ummah, to step up and do our part.
We need more people like Tanveer and his wife. May Allah give them even more strength, and may they be a shining example to the rest of the Muslim community as well.
Ameen.
Because obviously, people are anxious. There's no doubt about it.
Indeed.
People are have anxiety about going through the process because they're not sure. Because the scrutiny that people are put under, absolutely required scrutiny. Some people might be afraid of failing that process, and therefore that in itself might be a stigma for them, and you know that they might find that we don't want to be for whatever reason rejected. I mean, the rejection rate, I mean, obviously you do this on a day-to-day basis. I mean, the people who want to become foster parents or who want to adopt, the rejection rate could be quite high. I don't know, but that could be because of several reasons.
Yeah.
But the adoption rate is quite high as well at times, isn't it?
So to give you some context to that, nationally, 1 in 10 people who apply to become foster carers in terms of the data that I have become approved.
Right.
So 90% of people who apply fail.
Fail,
yeah?
yes. So there's a very high failure rate.
It is a very high failure rate. But what we've seen from our research, Iqbal Bhai, is that the number or the percentage in the Muslim community is significantly higher. So what we know...
Failure or...
Failure.
Right.
So what we know is that from the general population...
I'm not sure, so can I just say, Brother Tanveer, I'm sorry, my apologies, I'm not sure whether he's still on the line, but thank you very much for your call, and thank you for sharing your experience with us, and may Allah give you and your good lady and your family the highest reward, not only in this world, but in the world hereafter as well.
Ameen.
You're a shining example to every one of us. Sorry,
Mashallah,
come
mashallah.
back to you.
Yeah, in terms of, we were speaking of the success rates,
Yes.
you know, or the failure rates. So nationally, from the general population, 70% of people who consider fostering don't go past the initial inquiry.
All right.
In the Muslim community, it's 80%.
All right.
Yeah, so over 80% don't actually go past through the initial inquiry phase.
The first phase, yeah.
For those who do go past first base, what we're seeing is it's probably something more like 1 in 20
Right.
that are actually going through to be approved as foster carers.
Right.
So if you look at it statistically, it's stacked up against us. Yeah.
And what are the reasons behind that? Is there any clear evidence as to what the reasons are? I mean, obviously you need to have the right amount, you know, the right amount of sort of bedrooms in your
Yes.
family.
Yeah.
You know, you need to have the right structures available so that children can live in a proper home structure situation, etc. So, what are the reasons why people fail?
So we, as part of our work, commissioned a piece of research which is to be published very soon.
Right.
And it looked at the barriers to recruiting Muslim foster carers and adopters.
Mm-hmm.
And what that research found is that there's certain issues that exist within the community in terms of lack of knowledge,
Right.
lack of space, challenges around English language, challenges in terms of the types of questions that come up during the assessment process, you know. So you would be asked how you would support children who are of a different ethnicity or a different faith group to you, yeah, because that situation might arise, so
Yes.
the fostering service has to assess an individual on that basis. But what we've found is that we've had a significant number of complaints from individuals who have found the assessment process to be very intrusive, you know, and the nature and the tone of those questions to be upsetting in some cases, because we know that as Muslims there's certain things which in Islam are not permissible, you know. So part of our research was to look at what are the challenges within the community, and as I highlighted, space, language is a key factor. But what we've also seen is that more work needs to be done both at national and local authority level to change and adapt the processes for how Muslim communities and other minority groups are engaged by social workers, by assessing officers, because quite often we find that a significant number of people who have gone through the fostering assessment process with a local authority and for some reason stopped, have then gone on to an independent foster agency and successfully become foster carers.
Right.
So there's a need for greater cultural awareness.
So you're saying in the public sector process, there's a blockage in the system somewhere.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
And have you identified what that blockage is?
Well, I think first and foremost, the critical issue is that we live in a day and an age where customer service is very important. You know, we expect things at the click of a button, yeah? So the first challenge that local authorities have is their speed to response is very slow.
All right.
So from the point of inquiry to actually getting a response or having the opportunity to meet somebody from the fostering service, we find it to be on average much longer than you find in the independent sector. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge is that the amount of remuneration, now with fostering, obviously in adoption you're not paid, but in fostering you're paid, and it's not classified as a salary, it's classified as an allowance.
Right, yeah.
So there's a significant difference between the average rate of pay with a local authority versus an independent. Now, we're not saying that somebody should be motivated to become a foster carer because of the money, but it does help, and it does allow people to make those life choices. If somebody wants to stop working or reduce their hours because they have this supplementary income, it allows them to do so. So pay is most definitely an issue. And then thirdly, level of support, you know. So the ongoing support is not as good. And essentially,
from the local authority side.
That's right, yeah. So essentially this report that has been commissioned has been put forward to allow both the community and fostering services to understand what is good practice.
So, I mean, if you look at, you talked about barriers now, are those barriers cultural barriers or faith-related barriers? Or are there process barriers that you come across?
So I would say that the barriers that exist from the community are cultural barriers.
Right. Now I'm talking about the local authorities.
Oh, from the local authority,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So from the local authority, both.
Right,
Both,
okay.
yeah. So
So there's a bit of sort of inbuilt barriers around faith and culture.
Absolutely. So the report, which is, as I mentioned, is due to be published soon, the Muslim Fostering Project report, it has a number of recommendations. And one of the recommendations is for local authorities to consider how they engage Muslim communities in terms of the materials they use and how they get the message out. And secondly, a recommendation that particularly in areas where you've got a significant Muslim population, those local authority staff, recruitment officers, social workers should have better cultural awareness training, you know.
It's a real pity because I was hoping that one of the other guests today, I was going to have two people today, was from a local authority whose job role is to recruit foster parents within the Muslim community and promote fostering within the Muslim community. Unfortunately, just before we went on air, he texted to say he's had some problems with his car and could not make it. And we were, you know, I was hoping he could make it. But inshallah, what I've said to him is, you know, we will bring him back some other time, probably Shadim as well, and we can have a discussion, debate about the two systems that operate for people who want to become foster parents. I mean, obviously, this is a very important issue because we're now living in this, and we heard from Brother Tanveer, you know, a young 18-month-old baby, a 5-6-month-old baby. I mean, these are children who are being abandoned for all sorts of reasons, have lost their parents. Now, you know, that to me was shocking. I thought he was going to say 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old. But when he mentioned just months, that really surprised and shocked me. And to say that, you know, somebody like him and his good lady have taken on this enormous challenge, you know, for this, raising these very young children and giving them a family in which to grow up in, and an Islamic environment which will keep their heritage and their Muslim faith intact, inshallah, in itself is a huge, huge reward and you know, something that we need to applaud. And we will, you know, inshallah, hear more from other people as we did last time. Hopefully we can bring you back sometime again. You've been here before, and I'm sure, you know, you're very, very kind of you to keep coming. But, you know, this is a challenging issue for the Muslim community itself. And particularly if you are members of the Mosque Committee who are watching this program, please, please, please consider adopting this initiative that, you know, Shadim and his group, the Muslim Foster Network, are launching on Friday, and see how you can get involved in this particular initiative and how you can promote families within your communities, approaching them through their network and registering with them. We need to go, we're going for another break. Inshallah, we're coming back very soon. In the meantime, make yourself a nice tea, coffee, whatever it is, and we'll see you on the other side, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.